عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. عليكم السلام.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين إلى يوم الدين. صلوات اللهم صل على محمد. And a second salawat for Abdullah wa Habibullah Muhammad al-Mustafa. Peace be upon us. And a third salawat for Asadullah al-Ghalib Ali ibn Abi Talib Amir al-Mu'mineen. And a final salawat for Al-Qa'im al-Mahdi. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. O you who believe, Allah will certainly try you in respect of some game which your hands can reach, that Allah may know who fears Him in secret. Sadaqallah al-Aliyyul Azim. Tonight's topic of discussion, brothers and sisters, is boredom. Continuing last night's theme of what? Was happiness. Yesterday I discussed happiness, and today I'm gonna discuss boredom. The examples I gave yesterday as to what happiness is may have seemed too idealistic, too far-fetched for us to attain. So for tonight and the next 2 nights, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give steps in ways that those stories I shared with you yesterday will seem realistic, practicable, and attainable. Not just some fairy tale, it's too hard, we're not ma'sumin, we can't make it. No, there's set an example for us so we can strive for that. So starting tonight, I'll discuss this. And the next 2 nights, we're gonna continue in finding tactics and methods in order to find happiness. Which is what? We described yesterday, happiness is being religious. So that will be tonight's topic of discussion. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So you might be wondering, if you're trying to teach us the steps to take to going towards religiosity, then why are you here tonight talking about boredom? Because before entering the discussion as to how to become religious over the next 3 nights, let's first come to understand what are some of the obstacles we face when going towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What are some of the obstacles we face when going towards spirituality? What are some of the obstacles we face when going towards Ahlul Bayt? And it's one of the most simplest answers and most obvious answers. There's many factors that come into play when trying to analyze why some of us are not so religious or not so muttaqi or not so ABCD. Different factors. Upbringing, for example. Things we eat, for example. And the list goes on. But one very basic and very true answer, and I can ask the majority of us here and myself in moments of our life why we weren't so religious, is because of what? One very simple reason. I'm bored. I had nothing better to do. Simple as that. And because of that boredom, we found ourselves going to places of sin, and in that place committing more sin, and the list goes on and on. Only because of why? Some of these brothers are good people. Some of these sisters are good people. They wish to be religious. They want to be religious. But the reality of it is, they're sitting at home. They feel like they're bored. What happens when you're sitting at home alone and it's late? For example, you might watch something inappropriate. Or you're on a conversation online with someone sharing an inappropriate dialogue with the other person. You're on, today I guess, Facebook, or it's Twitter, or it's whatever form of community, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's BBM, whatever it is, you're up all the nights, maybe having inappropriate conversations, watching inappropriate things. And if it's not that, someone calls you. You're bored, you're at home, it's your friend, he wants to go to this place where there's mixed gathering and there's dancing, whatever the case may be. You may not even want to go, but you're just bored at home. So what ends up happening? You end up going, and then you end up being bored over there. Because you've done it so many times, you're sick of it, right? And that kind of keeps happening over and over again. And when you continue finding yourself in these places, you begin to swim in the sea of sin that's available there. Because you take one step, guess what happens? You just move forward and you move forward and you find yourself going deeper and deeper into that world rather than trying to get out because of one very simple reason. I have nothing better to do. It's boring. A lot of people say it's boring being religious. I can't do this, I can't do that. That's not the case. We can do anything and everything as I described yesterday. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And like I said, when you are trying to be religious, by the way, when you are, that's when that friend from high school that you haven't seen for so many years is going to call you. That's when that person you haven't talked to for X amount of time is going to say, let's go over here and let's go over there. They're always going to try to draw you back, right? You're trying, but what is it? The Quran tells us something very beautiful. Then I will, the shaitan is speaking, then I will certainly come to them from before them and from in front of them and from their right side and from their left side. The shaitan is telling us, you think I'm just going to leave you alone one phone call? One text message? One knock at the door? That's not going to be just, he's going to keep coming at you. You're fighting an enemy that's existed for thousands of years. The Quran describes him what? Our greatest enemy. You're fighting an enemy made of smokeless fire. You're fighting an enemy that's more knowledgeable than us, that's more powerful than us. That's not a joke. That's not an easy fight to enter. A physical and a real fight, and he's going to come to you in every way, especially when you're trying to go towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you're not religious or you're not going towards that path, you think he's going to waste time on you? He already has you in his pocket. You on your own are going to these places. You on your own are committing these sins. He's not going to care. It's when you want to go towards Allah, that's when he's there on your right side and on your left side and above you and below you, trying to bring you back. He's at war with you. The other guy he's already beat, right? So, and what's that verse I recited with at the beginning? O you who believe. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is speaking to who? Us. O you who believe. Allah will certainly try you in respect of some game which your hands can reach to see which one of you fears him in secret. So how many times are we alone or we're on a trip and we think no one will watch us? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala puts that temptation there and it's in hands reach. Allah says, I give it to them so it's their hands reach, but I want to see which one of them can turn away from it. Which one of them fears Allah in secret. It's not a matter of Canada. Oh, it's hard to be religious in Canada. I gave this example one time. Imam Moussa al-Qadhim, salawatullah wasalam alayhi. What happens to him? He's in prison. And the time the Hakim wanted to entice him with a woman, right? We think we're in Canada. Oh, the people are dressed like this here. People are dressed like that on campus and in schools and high schools. But look what the Imam comes and says. When that woman who works that illicit job is put in the prison cell with him, and she offers himself to him, and if she's of that beauty, in the end, instead of going towards her, she came towards him. And when the guard comes back, he finds them both doing sujood. And that it's not in a space as open as Canada, and a space as open as campus and as schools and bus. In a prison cell, he turned away from that. The same can go with Nabi Yusuf and Zulaykha. It's always in our hands to turn away from sin, and it's never impossible. The Quran, through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, tells us He will put it in hands reach to see which one of us will fear Him in secret. When we think nobody is looking, when no one is watching, then you'll know who we are. So, I'm going to change it up quickly, and then I'm going to come back to this topic of boredom. Because the past few nights I said we're going to discuss khutbat al-muttaqeen, right? And that khutbah is going to carry on through the 10 nights. And yesterday we discussed one very important aspect of that khutbah. But for those who are not familiar with it, I want to just give you a quick background as to what this lecture is from Imam Ali. One of his companions, a companion of Imam Ali, comes to him, and his name is Hammam, who is a devoted worshipper of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and devoted to Imam Ali. He says, O Amir al-Mu'mineen, describe to me the pious men in such a way so I can see them. Amir al-Mu'mineen avoided answering this question and gave him more of a general reply. Imam Ali comes and says, Hammam, "O Hammam, fear Allah and perform good acts, because verily Allah is with those who guard themselves against evil and do good to others." Hammam here wasn't satisfied with this answer. This khutbah, this is what we're gonna analyze over the next series of nights. He goes back to Imam Ali and says, being unsatisfied, therefore he said, "O Amir al-Mu'mineen, I implore you by the one who honored you to give me the merits exclusively favored to you as endowed with him, like as known by him as who is the muttaqi." He wants to know the true answer. What is a muttaqi? So here Imam Ali stands up and begins his sermon as to what a pious man is. Here at this moment, he begins to speak. So last night we discussed one very important piece of that sermon, which was what? What did I continue saying last night? The world aimed at them, but they did not aim at it. It sought them, but they escaped from it. That was the whole theme of last night's discussion, was this one point, going away from this dunya. So, how does it relate here? So the question is now, how can we free ourselves from it, the world, and break away from boredom, which takes us towards this dunya, right? It's the boredom that takes us towards this dunya. So how can we break away from it? Alhamdulillah, we're the Shias of Ahlul Bayt, and they don't leave us without any answer. They give us the most beautiful answer and the most practical of answers in which we can enact every single day of our life. The Imam has the most elaborate, most practical answer that will give you this world and akhirah, wealth, prosperity, knowledge, happiness, because you'll be with Allah with this answer. This world, as whatever it is you want. This hadith narrated by Imam Moussa al-Kadhim, this hadith narrated by him tells you how to live your life in a way where you enjoy the prosperity and the virtues of this world and stay away from boredom, at the same time have akhirah. He comes and he says what? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Commercial break. Building anticipation. So what does the Imam come and say here? As to how to answer this question of boredom. He says, Imam Moussa al-Kadhim alayhi salatu wassalam, divide your day, put effort that your time is scheduled into 4 parts. You guys, the whole lecture today is based on this one hadith. I haven't mentioned anything before, I won't mention anything after. Today's whole lecture is based on this one hadith that we're gonna all try to implement for not tonight or these 10 nights, but for the remainder of our life. If from these 10 nights you take nothing, you take this hadith from you and you practice this hadith. The Imam comes and says, divide your day into 4 parts. Put effort that your time is scheduled into 4 parts. And if you do this, everyone will come to see the benefit of it. Part 1, worship. Have a part of your day for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Quran, Salah, Mustahabbat. One part towards Allah. And the second part, we talk about worldly affairs right now, the economy, and the work for the affairs of the economy and your livelihood. So the work, schooling, for example, for students. Part 3, part for your social contact with brothers and persons of confidence who will let you know your faults and who have sincere love for you. That means spend time with who? The community, your family, and your friends. People who love you and will give you sincere advice. So what do we have so far? 1 part, worship. The second part, work, school. The final part, family and friends. Now this is the part that answers boredom, and this is the part we're gonna focus on. What does the Imam continue to say? The last and final part, something halal, which you will enjoy, which will give you energy for the other 3 parts. I never told you guys yesterday to forsake this world. No, the Imam is continuing here today and saying what? Worship, work, family and friends and community. Final part, a halal pleasure. I'm emphasizing halal pleasure. something that's pleasurable to you and that is halal to you. Why? So it will give you energy for the other 3 parts. Why is that? What's going on here? It's a little chocolate for the nafs, a little treat. When you do work at work, they give you a little reward, right? And at school and at home and everywhere else. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, does He not recognize the way He engineered man? Better than the teacher who rewards her student? Or better than the boss who rewards his employee? He engineered us and He built us. And a part of the nafs is desire. So what does He come and teach us to Ahlul Bayt? Find one halal pleasure which you enjoy that will give you the energy to do the other 3. Because when you practice something you enjoy and you give yourself that mental break, you'll do the other 3 even better. And you won't even have time to be bored. Now the question is, you have to find and you have to ask yourself, do you know yourself well enough? Do you have a hobby? Is there something you enjoy? Is there something that will occupy your time? If you spend your day like this, like I just mentioned, will you be bored? If you're busy with Allah and family and friends and work, and then you have something you enjoy, be it soccer, be it painting, be it writing, be it whatever it is that you find pleasurable to you. And the note is, not the whole day is this. A part of the day is this to give you energy for the other 3 parts. We can all understand the philosophy and the logic behind that. For anyone that knows me, knows I love, for example, being active. So I don't have time for my mind to run here and there. By the time I get home, I'm tired. If you were at school and then you go play. The worst is when you sit at home and you sit alone. These are simple advices I'm sharing with us. If you call a friend, go see a neighbor. The danger is sitting by yourself and being bored. And the key to stay away from boredom and the best way to live your life is according to that hadith. Brothers and sisters, stay busy. Stay busy. Why? Because idle hands is the devil's playground. Idle hands is the devil's tools. Occupy your mind. And there's so much to do. What does Salman Muhammadi come and teach us? He says what? He says, man cries over the dinar he lost. But does he not cry over the day he'll never get back? Yesterday you lost money in your business and we mourn and we're saddened over that. How about that day we just lost? And how could we be bored when there's so much to do? You think you're killing, I need to kill time. I'm bored. I need to do this. Brother, no one's killing time. No one is killing time. You're only killing yourself. You have to take advantage of this time. Time is so precious. Seriously, when you have a boring job like I have, every second, every minute I leave early, I'm thankful for that minute. We have to understand time as a ni'mah, time as a blessing, that we have to fully utilize it and take full advantage of it. Because this time is not promised to us. And none of us know when our time is done. And this is the only time we have to build our akhirah. With that said, I want to share something with you guys now. The beauty of having a hobby. The beauty of having a hobby. My brother, his hobby is what? He likes to write poetry. I'm going to share this poetry with you, this poem he wrote with you. And I'm going to come to show you the benefit of having a hobby and occupying your mind. And I think this is such a beautiful poem. And I want everyone to try to focus as much as they can on it. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Words to express my fearless love. Sand still soaked with the purest blood. Karbala, where ligaments were torn, where heroes died and martyrs were born. A tragedy that gave our spirituality form. Teardrops that will forever run down our faces. A continuous stream that traces back to where Abu Fadl Abbas was slaughtered. History altered as if it's a mystery who martyred the Prophet's family. So close to death and thirsty. And Imam al-Hussein still asked God to show his killers mercy. Mercy for distinguishing blood lineage from friendship. I'm just scratching the surface. Still many names unmentioned. Names that inflame tension. As soon as I mention claims to the Prophet's succession. Much profit to the henchmen who don't believe in intercession. How odd. They had no problems taking bribes to get to God. We agreed to intercede, but they chose greed over the seeds. Yazid over the family's tree, the Prophet's family tree. Who stood against all odds? Dogs are more loyal. Never ran from the battlefield screaming and yelling. How do you know about friendship when your best... I'll leave this line out. I am not against unity, but if you're not behind Imam Ali, there's no me and you or you and I. Except under the true wilayah will we unify. May God curse the enemies of the holiest progeny. Progeny snarled in front of their mothers and daughters. Death before dishonor. A few lions against 40,000 piranhas. The saga continues, and the plains of the deadliest venues still shedding tears for Imam Hussein's nephew. Fears no longer exist when you know what happened to Fatima's kids. I'm taking pleasure in sending their enemies down bottomless pits. Picture this, a newborn's neck torn by an arrow puncturing through his esophagus. Merciless cowards still trying to devour our remaining power. In Iraq, Iran, and Lebanon, we're steadfast. This is our finest hour. My tears are my tribute, and all I can contribute is I'm going insane. They murdered Muhsin in the belly of his mother. Listen to this. They murdered Muhsin in the belly of his mother. One less brother to defend Imam al-Hussein. Slain in the name of God, who knows what? I'm just a slave of God's slave. My God, shake the graves of those who shook in caves. May God shake the graves of those who shook in caves. My rage is so dense, there's not air enough to fill my lungs. Sons bury fathers, but in Karbala, fathers bury sons. Look at that line. See what happens when you have a hobby? Honestly, to me, it's such a beautiful poem, and each line can really be thought over and scrutinized. That's just by thinking, taking a minute, sitting down, not wasting your time all day on who knows what. So like I said, today's main goal, brothers, find a hobby, a halal pleasure, something you enjoy. But now my question is, sons bury fathers, but in Karbala, fathers bury sons. But can I ask you, who buried the sons of Muslim? Who buried the sons of Muslim bin Aqil, his sons Ibrahim and Muhammad? These were the two young infant boys of Muslim bin Aqil. When Ubaidullah bin Ziyad, he saw them, he put them in prison. And he comes and says, take away these two children and imprison them. And do not give them good food, cold water, and harass them. This was the orders of Ubaidullah bin Ziyad in Kufa with these two infant sons of Muslim bin Aqil. And here, when they saw the guard, the way he was treating them, they said, maybe if we tell this guard who we are, maybe he'll be nicer with us. So when they came to him and they said, we are the sons of Muslim bin Aqil, he decided to let them go. And then from there they wandered the streets alone at night until they came by a woman. And when this woman saw, she said there was a fragrance from them I've never smelt before. And when hearing that, she asked who they was. They told her, we are the sons of Muslim bin Aqil. She took them, but she told them, I have a son-in-law. I have a son-in-law who's an evil man. But he said, we have no place to go, so he stayed the night with her. And then that same son-in-law, Harith, he came to the door knocking. She says, why do you come so late at night? He says, I'm in search of those two boys. Ubaidullah bin Ziyad has put a ransom on their bodies and a ransom on their heads. So she lets him in because he needed to get into the house. And then he hears somebody snoring. When hearing those kids snoring, he poked at the younger one till he woke up. He asked them who they were. They told him they were the sons of Muslim. So that night he captured them and tied them up until the next day came. When the next day came, he told himself, I will slaughter these two infants and these two beautiful boys. He took them to the Euphrates and he gave them to his servant, to one of his black slaves. But when they said, oh black slave, you remind us of our mu'adhin. He said, why? Who are you? He says, we are the sons of Muslim. So when hearing who they were, he threw himself into the water and he threw the sword down and he ran to the other side. And then this cursed man sent his own son. And when they saw his son, they said, "Oh boy, you're so young. We were to be putting you in hell forever." They're still worried about who? They first worried about the slave. Now who are they worried about? They're worried about this man's son. And when hearing this, the youth fell upon their feet, and he started kissing them, and he repeated the word. He repeated the exact same things as the slave, and he jumped into the water. Here, he comes towards these young boys. He unsheaths his sword. Their eyes became full of tears. They say, "Oh Shaykh, take us to the market and sell us." Imagine, first they saved the soul of the black man, the slave. Then they saved the soul of the son. Now they say, "You don't kill, just put us in the slave." He says no. Then they continue to say, "Oh Shaykh, don't you consider our relation with the Prophet?" He says no. He says, "Shaykh, what about our young age?" He continues to say no to them. And then in the end, when they saw that there's no hope, they come and say, "Oh Shaykh, now that there's no hope left, give us respite to recite some units of prayer." He said, "Pray as much as you'd like if it benefits you." The children recited 4 units of prayer, then lifted their eyes towards the heavens and cried, "O ever living, O wise, O best of judges, judge between us and the righteous." He stood and he severed the head of the older brother who was only 10, and he kept the head in a bag and threw his body into the water. The younger brother then says, who had smeared his body in the blood of his elder brother and said, "I desire to meet the Prophet of Allah in this very state, drenched in my brother's blood." He said, "Do not fear, for you shall soon join your brother." And at this point he came and he slaughtered the young head of his younger brother, and he took his head and he threw his body into the river. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to let us be of those who live their lives as Imam Moussa prescribes. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow us to be of His ibadah as-salihin, the habba of Muhammad wa al Muhammad, the shi'as of Amir al-Mu'mineen, and the muntadhirin sahib al-zaman. Sallallahu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.